Hello, beautiful soul. Welcome back to Everything Within podcast. I'm your host, Alina Krasnojon. This podcast is all about empowering you to build an extraordinary, fulfilling life and tap into the limitless potential that resides within you. Thank you for tuning in today. Today, we're talking about letting go of people and relationships that no longer serve us, of all the versions of ourselves we've been clinging to, and of the need to control how our lives are supposed to look. We will also get into why it's so much harder than it sounds and how to even begin. Now, if you've been here for a while, you might remember the episode I released this summer about the power of detachment. And you might be thinking, isn't that the same thing? I thought so too for a long time. But here is the difference. Detachment is about how you hold something. It's the inner distance you create so that things don't consume you. Letting go is about choosing to release it entirely. Detachment is a state of mind. Letting go is an act, a conscious, sometimes painful, deeply courageous act. So I want to leave you with a question to carry through this episode. You don't need to answer it now, just let it sit with you. What are you still carrying that was never yours to keep? Let's begin. We tend to think that letting go means forgetting, that it means you stop caring, that you erase someone or something from your heart, that you just move on like it never mattered. But that's not it at all. You can still love someone and choose to let them go. You can still care deeply about something and decide to release it. Letting go doesn't mean it didn't matter. It means you're choosing yourself, your peace, your growth over the control of holding on. Letting go is not giving up on yourself. It's not lowering your standards, accepting less than you deserve, or admitting defeat. I think we confuse these things a lot, especially as women, because we've been taught that holding on is loyalty, that staying is strength, that leaving or releasing means you failed somehow. But letting go is not collapse, it's not resignation, it's not walking away with your head down. It's actually one of the most self-respecting things you can do sometimes, because it requires you to be honest enough to say, this is no longer aligned with who I am and who I am becoming. It requires you to value your own peace, your own growth, your own life enough to stop pouring yourself into something that has run its course. Letting go isn't giving up on yourself. It's finally choosing yourself fully, maybe for the first time. And this is something I really want you to sit with. Letting go might be one of the biggest acts of love you can offer to yourself and sometimes to others too. Because when you're clinging to something that no longer serves you, a relationship, an old identity, a version of your life you thought you'd have, you're not really present, you're not free, you're just managing the weight of it every single day. Letting go creates space to breathe, space to feel ease, space to finally invite in what actually belongs in your life now. But here is the thing, it requires brutal honesty with yourself first. Looking clearly at what you're holding, why you're holding it, and what it's actually costing you. That's not easy. So why do we hold on? If it's so heavy, why do we keep carrying it? Because most of the time, what we are holding isn't just a person or a situation. It's part of how we understand ourselves. We hold on out of fear of who we are without it, out of comfort, because even pain can feel familiar, and familiar feels safe, out of unfinished grief, because we never fully processed the loss. And sometimes we hold on because we've been through trauma that we never truly work through. And without even realizing it, we become attached to the struggle itself. The struggle becomes our identity, our story, our proof that we survived. I know this personally. There was a point in my life where I started to see clearly how much I was holding. Trauma I hadn't processed, old versions of myself I had to create just to survive, and then kept carrying long after I didn't need them anymore. Beliefs about how my life was supposed to look, how my marriage, my career, my whole story should unfold. And the painful thing, a lot of these things had become my sense of self. Letting them go felt terrifying because without them, I didn't know who I was. They were familiar, they were mine. The more I clung, the worse I felt, and at some point I had to get really honest with myself. I cannot create the life I actually want while my inner world is cluttered with all of this. It's just not possible. You can't build something new on ground you haven't cleared. I didn't let all of these things consciously. Some of them I had to let go through lots of suffering, and that's the thing. When you refuse to let go, at some point, life will force you to do it. That was the beginning of understanding what letting go really means, and since then, it has become an ongoing practice for me. So now that we understand what letting go actually is, let's dive into what we're really releasing, because it's rarely just one thing. In my experience, it happens in layers, and I want to walk you through 3 of them. The first one is people and relationships. This is probably the one we feel most viscerally, because we cling to people, especially the ones closest to us. Our parents, our partners, our children, and the cleaning doesn't always look like cleaning. Sometimes it looks like trying to help, like caring, like just wanting what's best for them. But underneath it, a lot of the time, what's really happening is that we're trying to manage people. We mold them into the version of themselves that make us feel safe, seen, and understood. We project our old wounds onto them. We get triggered by them, and we spend enormous amounts of energy trying to control how they show up. Because if they show up the way we need them to, maybe we'll finally feel okay. And I get it, I really do. These patterns don't come from nowhere. They come from trauma, from wounded parts of ourselves that learned a long time ago that managing others was the only way to feel safe. But what if you let go of the need to change your parents? What if you let go of trying to control how people see or perceive you? What if you stopped trying to manage your partner's behavior or mold your children into what you want to see instead of letting them have their own experiences, their own lives, their own mistakes, and took all that energy, all of it, and invested it into yourself instead? The second layer is letting go of old versions of ourselves. And this one is equally hard, maybe even harder, because investigating your own behavior, your own patterns, your own ways of being in the world requires a lot of honesty. It's so much easier to see when other people are wrong. We notice their patterns, their blind spots, their contradictions, but our own, we protect them fiercely because our beliefs, our roles, our ways of being, they create our sense of who we are. And deconstructing that feels like a threat to your very existence. But when you start doing real self-development work, real spiritual work, you have no choice but to constantly release your old identities. Identities built around being a victim, around not being worthy, around your trauma, around the roles you were handed, especially as women, from the moment you were born. They're also the caregiver, the one who manages everyone's emotions, the one who is useful, convenient, endlessly giving, and never ever asks for help. The one who is perfect, who holds it all together, who makes herself small so others can feel comfortable. The roles were imposed on us as women. We didn't choose them, but at some point we have to choose to let them go. And it's also about releasing who you thought you'd be by now, what you thought you'd achieved, who you thought you'd have become by a certain age. But here is the truth. Desires change, goals evolve, and that's not failure, that's growth. Life isn't about checking boxes someone else created for you. And when you release that perfect image of how your life was supposed to look, the one that was never really yours to begin with, you finally create space to discover what a life that's actually yours could feel like. And the third layer, letting go of the need to control outcomes. We try to control so much, often things that were never in our hands to begin with. And I want to say this clearly. The need for control is not a personality trait. It's a trauma response, especially when you grew up in survival mode, in chaos, in an environment where you never felt truly safe. Control was how you managed the unpredictability. It was how you protected yourself. But you cannot force outcomes, grip to your life tightly, resist everything that doesn't go according to your plan, and somehow end up free. It doesn't work that way. What works and what I've slowly learned is trusting yourself. Not trusting that life will always go the way you want, but trusting that you can handle what comes, that you are resourceful enough, strong enough, resilient enough to meet whatever unfolds. You do your best in each moment. You align with your desires. You do the inner work, releasing the beliefs, the narratives, the trauma, the pain that keeps you stuck. And then you let life flow. You stop forcing, you stop resisting, you stop gripping the steering wheel of something you were never fully driving to begin with. You let life unfold naturally, trustingly, and that is its own kind of freedom. So if letting go creates space is freedom, why it's so incredibly hard to actually do it? Here is the paradox. Most of the time, we already know. We know the relationship has run its course. We know the beliefs that are keeping us stuck. We know the patterns and habits that keep us small. We know we need to release it. And we've known for months, sometimes for years, sometimes for decades. But knowing isn't enough, because knowing lives in your head. And letting go, real letting go, requires something far more demanding. It requires honesty, courage, the willingness to take a terrifying decision, even when it feels like the ground is disappearing beneath your feet. Even when it feels like the end of your world, you still know somewhere deep inside that it's the right thing to do. But choosing it anyway, that's the hard part. And if you don't choose it consciously, life will eventually choose for you. It always does. The cost will be suffering. You find yourself in this liminal space knowing what needs to happen but still clinging, and it's exactly that gap between knowing and releasing that creates the unease, the sadness, the feeling of being stuck in something you can't quite name. You're not fully in, you're not fully out, and that place is exhausting. And as we talk about all of this, the awareness, the practice, the repetition, I want to speak directly to the voice that might be getting louder as you listen, the inner critic. The one that says, you should have done this sooner, you've known for years, why are you still here? Why can't you just move on already? What is wrong with you? And I want you to know that voice is not the truth. It's just fear dressed up as self-improvement. The letting go process is one of the places where the inner critic tends to be the loudest, because you're in vulnerable territory. You're deconstructing things that have been part of you for a long time. And the inner critic, whose job, in its own distorted way, is to keep you safe, panics. And here is what that voice needs from you, more than anything else: compassion. Not agreement, not silence, compassion. You held on as long as you did for a reason. Those patterns, those coping mechanisms, those identities you're now releasing, they served you once. They helped you survive something, and there is nothing weak about that. There is nothing shameful about being human, about being shaped by your experiences, about taking time to be ready. You're not behind, you're not broken, you're in the process, and that is exactly where you're supposed to be. And even when you do choose it, letting go is not a moment, it's a process, a long one, sometimes painfully long. It usually starts with an insight, a moment of clarity where you finally see something you couldn't see before, and instead of pushing it away as you have before, you stay with it. You let yourself sit with the discomfort, you let it breathe, and then comes the grief for the person, for the version of yourself you're releasing, for what could have been, for the life you imagined. And also, and this one is subtle, grief for the version of you that was created in the process of holding on. Because sometimes we become someone we didn't need to become. We harden in places we didn't have to harden. We lost things about ourselves we didn't realize we were losing. And then there is not knowing. I think that's one of the scariest part. When you let go, there is no certainty waiting on the other side, no guarantee of how you will be or what your life will look like. And our nervous system does not like that. Uncertainty feels like danger. But here is what I want you to hold. The fear and the liberation can coexist. You can be terrified and still feel a quiet sense of ease. beginning to emerge. You can grieve and still feel something loosening in your chest. That's not contradiction. That's what freedom actually feels like when it's real. And grief, I really want to stay here for a moment, because I think we push past it too quickly sometimes. You're allowed to grieve fully, without putting a timeline on it, without performing okayness before you feel it, without forcing positivity over pain that hasn't been processed. Letting go of something that mattered, of someone, of a version of yourself, of a dream that deserves to be grieved. The emotions need somewhere to go. They need to be felt, moved through, and released. Because emotions that aren't processed don't disappear, they just go deeper, and they find other ways to surface. So give yourself the time, stay with it, feel all of it. And across many wisdom traditions, this truth about surrender and release has been at the center of spiritual practice for thousands of years. In Buddhism, attachment is understood as a root of suffering. Not the things themselves, but our clinging to them. The practice isn't to stop feeling, but to hold everything more lightly, to let things arise and pass without grasping. In Hinduism, there is the concept of vairagya, non-attachment, the willingness to release outcomes and surrender to something larger than your ego's plans. Taoism talks about wu-wei, effortless action, flowing with life rather than forcing it, the Tao that cannot be controlled, only trusted. And in many other traditions, Stoic philosophy, Sufism, even parts of Christian mysticism, there is the same thread. The deepest freedom comes not from holding on more tightly, but from learning to open your hands. We didn't invent the struggle. Humans have been working through it forever, and maybe there is something quietly comforting in it. So how do you actually start? Where do you even begin with something so big? I want to be clear, this isn't a step-by-step guide. There is no checklist for letting go, but there are ways to practice it. And I think that's exactly the right word, practice. Not a destination you arrive at, not something you do once and take off, a practice. Something you return to again and again for the rest of your life. And here are the few anchors that have helped me and that I hope can help you too. The first one is awareness. You can't release what you can't see. So the starting point is simply noticing what are you gripping right now and why. Pay particular attention to the things that cause you suffering, the outdated beliefs you're still running on, the survival strategies that kept you safe once but are keeping you small now, the thoughts that loop and make you feel unworthy, unloved, not enough. Awareness is not a passive thing. It demands presence. It demands that you catch yourself in the middle of the reaction, in the middle of a spiral, and ask, am I cleaning right now? Is this grip serving me? And then, instead of following the grip, you choose differently, even just slightly, even just for a moment. That moment of choice, the tiny pause between stimulus and reaction, that's where the practice lives. And awareness isn't only mental. Letting go lives in the body too. We store grief, trauma, old identities physically, intention in our shoulders, tightness in our chest, constriction in our throat. The body keeps score of everything the mind tries to move past. So when you're practicing awareness, bring it into your body too. Notice where you feel the grip physically. When do you tighten when a certain person's name comes up? Where do you hold your breath? Where does your body brace? That tension is information. It's showing you exactly where the work is. The second anchor is ritual. There is something deeply powerful about creating a symbolic act around letting go, because the mind responds to symbols, the body responds to ritual, and sometimes you need something tangible to help you release what words alone can't touch. This can be as simple as breath. When you feel yourself becoming reactive, when you feel the grip tightening, a slow, conscious breath is not nothing. It's a signal to your nervous system that you are safe, that you don't need to hold on so tightly right now. Journaling is another one I come back to constantly. Writing on the emotion, the thought, the fear, whatever is alive in you before you react, before you speak, before you do anything. Let it out onto the page first. Vent it. feel it, release it there, so you don't release it into someone else. You can also create your own rituals, writing something down and burning it, a walk in nature with the intention to release, a moment of stillness before a difficult conversation. The specific ritual matters less than the intention behind it. You are telling yourself and something larger than yourself, I'm ready to let this go. The third anchor is repetition. And this one I really want you to hear, because I think is the one that saves us from the most unnecessary shame. You will have to let go of the same thing more than once, probably many times, especially the things that are deeply ingrained, the old wounds, the core beliefs, the patterns that have been with you since childhood. They will come back. You will think you released something, and then 3 months later, there it is again, sitting in your chest like it never left. That is not failure, it's just how it works. Letting go is not linear, it's a spiral. You revisit the same things at deeper and deeper levels as you grow, and each time you get a little better at recognizing it, a little faster at choosing to release, a little gentler with yourself in the process. So remind yourself as many times as you need that it's okay to let go again and again and again. And I want to leave you with one question, not to answer right now, just to carry with you. If I trusted life completely, would I still be holding this? Sit with that. Let it do its work. This is not about becoming perfectly healed. It's not about reaching some spotless, enlightened version of yourself who never grips, who never cleans, who never gets triggered again. That person doesn't exist. Life will keep showing you the same things. It will press on the same tender spots, send you the same lessons in different packaging, make you face the same fears until you're finally ready to look at them differently. That's not a sign that you're failing, that's just life doing what life does. And with time, with practice, with honest inner work, you become less reactive, less controlled by what used to consume you, more able to flow with change instead of being crushed by it. And that shift is gradual, because there will always be things outside of your control, always, that will never change. But you are not at the mercy of life simply because you can't control everything that happens. What you can't control, and this is where the real power lies, is how you respond, how you interpret what happens to you, the meaning you choose to give it, the story you decide to tell about it. That is yours. No one can take that from you. And this week, I'm not asking you to do anything. Just notice. Notice where you feel the grip in your body, in your thoughts, in your reactions. Notice what you're holding a little too tightly. You don't have to release it yet. Just see it. Awareness is always where it begins. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. Until the next time. Bye.